Hello, all, and welcome. This episode is part 2 of Perspectives from a Transformational Leader in DE&I. So again, joining us via Zoom is Joey Aviles, Transformational Speaker, Lead Researcher, and Executive Coach. And once again, our moderator is Dr. Guido Minaya, CEO and Chief Learning Officer of Minaya Learning Global Solutions. We'll be diving in where we left off, and they continue their conversation. Stay tuned to learn more.
And, Dr. Minaya, going back to the three challenges that I mentioned, I'll just give you one strategy that our listeners can implement. And I've seen this strategy. It sounds so simple, yet it's not as simple as you may think. Just to recap, the three challenges that I mentioned was, not having enough time, right, in their day to day. The second challenge that I mentioned was wanting to achieve too much too fast. And the third challenge was fully understanding that the successful DEI thinks about long-term change. And I should say long-term sustainable change. There is a strategy that I recommend in my trainings and consulting, and that is putting together an annual calendar for your ERG. Dr. Minaya, that sounds simple, doesn't it?
Yes.
You will be surprised how many ERGs are still at such early maturity in their journey that they don't have an annual calendar that helps them to, number one, truly pick the events, the efforts that will have the most impact, thus helping you manage your time more successfully. Number two, having that calendar helps you understand that you cannot do too much too fast. So it helps you organize your resources, your people, and the way you decide to show up. And then by having that annual plan, that helps you look at in the long term. And I know that I mentioned just 1 year, but the next step after having a calendar is having a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan. And I have seen some organizations thinking about even 2030 and thinking beyond the decade.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And I think, as you consider tools that you are able to share with your clients, what kind of tools would you recommend HR, ERG, BRG leaders to consider? I mean, the annual calendar, the 3 to 5 year plus strategic plan, but are there other tools like assessments, or what would you share in terms of what ERG leaders should take into account in terms of best practices or better ways to manage their operations?
Absolutely. And you mentioned it right there. Thinking about you are managing an organization, really, and exploring and embracing the truth that you must have the same rigor that you apply to any other business area, you should apply to your ERG management. So the next strategy that I love to recommend to my clients is data, data, data. What data are you tracking and managing and involving? Because numbers will give you power. Once you connect those numbers to real live stories, that'll give you the passion and the energy to move the mission of your ERG forward. So we do have an assessment that encompasses around 50 questions, and it helps ERGs kind of identify the maturity level. Are they an emerging ERG? Or perhaps the stage two will be an established ERG. But then there is a clear goal in the horizon, and that is becoming an excellent ERG. And an excellent ERG has like strong membership and participation. They have a robust structure and governance. They have clear and measurable goals and objectives and a track of successful initiatives have had a tremendous impact in the bottom line of the organization. When I share what an excellent ERG looks like, everyone wants to become that. So the way we help them to achieve that is by having clear measures and metrics that they can follow and study and track and improve beyond time. So data management and embracing the numbers that will help you give power to those stories that you see in the day-to-day operations of your ERG and organization.
Fantastic, fantastic. My first part of my career was within large organizations, and that's when I became involved with an ERG. But it's interesting because once you become involved, it's the transition, right, from one ERG administration to the next ERG administration. Depending on how well it operates, the transition might be really good. In other cases, they may not have the processes for the appropriate kind of a transition that will help the new leader, start from the beginning at a higher level. And then the second part of my career was also supporting and being part of other nonprofits. And so over the years, and definitely in the chamber world, the Hispanic chamber world, there are tools that we put in place, such as understanding parliamentary procedures, how to run a meeting, how to make decisions, um, governance, communications and marketing, understanding volunteer management, because all you have is you're not paying anybody, right? All you have is volunteers. So how do you manage? And really, the best way to manage volunteers is through appreciation. Whether they give you an hour, whether they give you 40 hours over a year, you have an appreciation approach, right? Then there's, if you are capable of getting funding from the company, financial management, fundraising, program and event management. So we organize that into a curriculum for BRGs and ERGs, because in many cases there isn't, no one teaches you how to run a nonprofit, and no one easily teaches you how to run a BRG. So those kinds of tools are greatly needed.
Absolutely, Dr. Minaya. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I believe that companies need to invest more in programs like the one that you are referencing right now. Those curriculums and those learning will save the organization so much money, time, and effort. So if there is anyone listening, thinking about the impact that training like this can have, not only in your ERGs or BRGs, but in your bottom line as well.
Absolutely. From your experience, are there specific examples of how ERGs added value to their organizations or their companies? Are there any that you could cite that say, you know what, here's a great example of high value that an ERG can provide?
Oh, I have a few in mind. One of the most exciting one is this client of mine. They are a candy company, right? And they are responsible to put candy out there. Like everyone is familiar with the candy that they sell among retail stores, right? So they did something brilliant. And what they accomplished was they gave every BRG a specific candy brand, right? And of course, I cannot give you the specifics, but it was brilliant to see that they assigned brands that were extremely connected to, let's just say, the Hispanic community or the Black community or the Asian community. And they had data backing up those decisions. So they involved the ERG, BRG early on in designing a market penetration strategy. How is it that we can better connect with, let me just use an example, the Hispanic community in the way we portray our brand? from marketing to how we show up in the store to how do we communicate the value of this particular candy brand. That is one example. The second example comes from a hotel company, one client of mine. And they cited a specific outcome involving the LGBTQIA plus community and their pride events across the country. And what they did was they connected the particular ERG to a specific celebration, thus expanding the amount of business they accomplish in at the end of the day. That's a second example that I can bring to the table. And then I have many more relevant to the beauty industry as well as the healthcare industry and how ERGs help the organization improve service, improve growth, and most importantly, enhance employee engagement in the process.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Those are great examples. Given our current state, right, whether it's the political climate or just the changes that every small, medium, and large business has to adapt to, what kind of guidance might you give ERG leaders in ensuring that they are sustainable and stay relevant within their larger organizations?
Intentionality, Dr. Minaya. That's I will go with that question because when I look back in my experience as an ERG leader as well as a chief managing ERGs, I saw the ERGs that had tremendous intentionality and focus and understood that their time was finite, that their availability of funds was limited. So having that intentionality and focus in deploying their initiatives was huge. And I'll say this, every organization and industry is different and peculiar, and they have their own nuances and challenges and bureaucracies. Understanding that as an ERG leader, you may not be able to change the culture or change the issues at hand right away. But yes, you can make a dent in the problem. And having that understanding, because these issues and challenges that ERGs are managing, for example, representation is one of them. And I saw many ERGs saying, I want to change the face of the company. And then I saw them struggling at the point of having burned out and left because they couldn't achieve the representation that they were seeking. However, if it's about making a dent, no, you may not be able to change representation overnight, but yes, you can be able to increase a percentage point and having the mindset that you can have an impact when you have intentionality and focus is everything in this game. And it helped me clearly define the goals that I wanted to go after. So intentionality and focus.
Those are great points and guidance, Joey. Thank you. I'd say the last point would be around succession planning, right? So here you have, in some cases, like the ERG that you were part of, a long-standing ERG, and then you have to prepare those new ERG leaders to take over. And my experience has been that the sooner that you can prepare those that may become the leaders of your ERG, the better. What kind of succession planning processes or plans have you seen that have worked?
I have one that I was so impressed. So this company, they kept experiencing turnover in the chair management of ERGs, and they were like, something is going on here, so we need to think about this. So they did an approach that worked for them. So they selected a share, right? But then they had a number of co-chairs available that were ready to step into the leadership role. To be specific, in this particular organization, the the presidency or share had a limited amount of time. It was like a year or a year and a half of leadership. And then the co-chair was understood that was going to move immediately as the chair of this ERG after 1 year and a half. So they had this sustainability plan in place of having a pipeline already of proven leaders that were ready to step in. But the best practice is they were able to put this approach into policy. And that is the brilliance. If you are an HR leader or a CDO listening to this call, it is critical to put things in writing, whether they are SOP, standard operating procedures, or policy or regulation, you name it. But make sure that you put this guidance in writing so every ERG in your organization follows the same approach. So they had a co-chair for a limited amount of time, and it was understood that the co-chair was going to come after. So that pipeline was kind of automatic, already embedded into the management of the ERG.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Well, Joey, thank you so much for the guidance, the insights, and your experience that you shared with our listeners. It was so much fun having this conversation with you, and I look forward to a future conversation. And we will definitely let folks know if they need to reach out to you for some additional support, how they can reach you. But thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Minaya. And I would love to connect to your listeners. LinkedIn is my biggest social media. And you can find me as Joey Aviles. It's very simple. And I have a few things and resources and actually gifts for your audience. So if they connect with me on LinkedIn, I have a research that we just published completely free, but it talks about how to elevate the Hispanic experience in the workplace. And to your listeners only, I will make available my BRG evolution blueprint and more information for what they do and what they are looking for in their ERG journey. Thank you so much for the invite, Dr. Minaya, and looking forward to continue the conversation.
Thanks again, Joey. Dario, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Guido. And thank you, Joey. Joey, I'm sure our listeners will appreciate your expert insights, perspectives, and all those amazing freebies you're handing out. You're the perfect guest to close out our series on ERGs and BRGs. It was wonderful to listen to you and Guido. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we hope you gained some insights. Until next time.